Broadcast live.
We out here, we having a serious conversation. So never mind me if we're not smiling. We got Wiseman from CAPASSO. What's up, Wiseman? Say what's up.
What's up, man? How are you?
Doesn't matter today, but Wiseman, CAPASSO is out here in these streets. The world is changing. It's going digital, but there's not enough information that marries the world changing and the musician and the digital musician. Could you just elaborate what Capasso is, does, and their aspirations?
All right. In a nutshell, we're a collective management organization. So we effectively license and collect and distribute royalties for the mechanical reproduction of people's musical works. Essentially, in a nutshell, if you've written a song, composed a song, and somebody reproduces that song or reformats it in any way, there's a royalty due to you for that. So we play a lot in the digital space in the sense that we license the likes of Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, any formalized digital service provider we would license and then distribute royalties stemming from usage on those platforms to our members.
So, I mean, with the world going digital, and we know that television, radio, there's stories where they talk about how radio and television would take millions and millions of royalties because of the songs they've been playing from overseas songs. Do you think that it hasn't become an important thing to South Africa because we haven't really had the guys that make a lot of money of publishing locally, but it hasn't been a story that like people write about. You know what I mean? Do you feel that's why maybe publishing is overseen because clearly if someone is reproducing your track and there are many composers, you should be getting something from it.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why people don't necessarily write songs about publishing is one, it's a very boring sector of the music industry. And it's overshadowed by the recording side and the recording business, which also then plays second fiddle to the live business. So your publishing income would probably be the last thing you look at if you are a composer who happens to also perform and record their own music. So people tend to forget it, despite the fact that it's the income that will basically, people tend to refer to it as your retirement, because it's the sort of income that will always be there. Anytime that somebody makes use of your song, there might be publishing income due to you. For instance, people still sampling songs till this day. I mean, there's a Stimela sample on the latest Casper song. So that melody on there has a publishing split that should be due to the original composers of that song. And they did absolutely nothing to make sure that they generate their revenue. It's literal passive income that happens because you happen to create something so original that somebody else at a later stage in life, maybe 10, 20 years later, still finds so appealing that they want to make use of it in creating new art.
I was listening to Lionel Richie yesterday, and because I was watching a movie where they literally kept playing the song. I think it's Baby Driver, Baby. And so I got in my car, played Lionel Richie, and then I remember I was in a press conference with Hugh and Ricky Rick, and Hugh was talking about in his time there was no genres, it was just all music. And but music that lasted forever clearly was the good music, even the bad. So even then there was bad music, What does it mean, like, for a do we have an industry that supports the longevity of music that way? Because now, that's why am I going to care about publishing when I know that, like, our radio system is not the greatest, our broadcast system is not the greatest. Do you think these things are also encouraged by proper infrastructure that gets content out? Because right now, because kids can't plug in a traditional platform, which is not really proper infrastructure also, they just do it themselves and they never think about the publishing. What role do those traditional platforms play in actually informing and educating?
Yeah, well, I think a formal infrastructure anyway aids in understanding exactly which organizations do what and where each sector falls in. So in a bit, the fact that we have a semi-formalized industry in the country aids in making sure that people understand that there is a CAPASSO, there is a SAMRO, versus in an industry where none of those organizations exist. You won't understand exactly what royalty is due to you. The fact that an organization like CAPASSO exists means South African composers now can have an avenue to understand exactly what a mechanical royalty is versus what a performing royalty is versus what a sales royalty is versus what a synchronization royalty is. And traditionally, yes, most of these were clouded in confusion, for lack of a better term. But with the advent of a new semi-independent creative who wants to basically understand or control their creative content, it's incumbent on creatives nowadays to try and find out more about their industry. What type of industry is there? How does a song go from a piece of paper to a studio to a phonogram or a CD, and all the way down to a stream? And what happens within all of these different platforms of exploitation, and what are the monetization aspects of all of these? You also need to understand all of these. And then I think the new modern musician is constantly grappling with trying to understand this on a daily basis, and that aids in them understanding.
I think you need to have this, just like, ideas.
Yeah.
Take them back to the board. You need to have like this thing which has all the mediums where you can play music, and then have like a number, like R1, take for instance, across all of them, and then you go percentage split, so people get an idea. So if author, composer, things like that, you got to make it for dummies. I mean, I think this pretty much sums up what publishing is. So this is such a beautiful thing we just talked about. So the government is trying to take this away from us.
It's a very terrible thing that's currently happening. So for background purposes, there is a current copyright amendment bill that is being debated in the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee as we speak. So the net effect of this bill is that it takes power away from the creators of creative content and puts it in the hands of super users. And it's a very, very user-centric piece of legislation, which we feel will have the net effect of taking away the food from the composers.
You are pretty educated. Net effect, super users. Take me down to net effect, meaning that, okay, the result is basically I'm translating you, right? The result is that basically super users are like your television shows, your radios, etc., etc. Is that a super user?
I'd focus more on the digital side of things, specifically because that's where we're going.
So okay. So who is a super user right now? I mean, please explain why the problem is. What's the problem with the bill? Okay. Get into that.
Okay, so there's quite a number of problems with the bill, right? But the main one, as to not use the term net effect again, but
thank you.
the problem with how they've drafted it is that it effectively says users have more control and more power of creative content over the people who actually own it. And some of the clauses in the bill actually have an effect of taking away existing rights from composers and rights holders at the moment, and taking those away and giving them to users. So, for instance, you have one clause which is as absurd a clause as you can ever have in a bill that deals with copyright, where it says a copyright holder will have to share equally on the royalties that they generate from the use of their music with the very same user who uses it, which is silly. Like, it's just absurd. So those types of things, but it's a result of having many user lobbies. So effectively, what has happened across the globe is you have organizations that want to offer creative content for free in order to exploit it and generate as much income from people accessing their portal. So they create different ways to access content, and in so doing, you flock to it. And the more you offer creative content, the more people flock to your portal or your platform. And the problem with certain bills and certain ways in which it's coached is that you don't then you get a lot of value as the person who created the platform, which doesn't translate to the actual people whose content you are using to create that value. So you end up with people who create platforms earning a lot more money than the people whose works are being used on those platforms. So your song has 1 million hits, but it doesn't translate monetarily in your pocket to something that's tangible. And that's
what's currently happening in any case.
But what will happen with this bill then? It will accelerate that process, because at the moment it's happening, but at least world over, people are fighting it. Right?
So basically, essentially, it's almost like the users now. We've moved from a recording label owning you, because we're moving from major recording to independent artists, to now mediums becoming almost like recording labels.
So, and that's the problem with the bill. The drafting doesn't necessarily understand exactly how each particular copyright is exploited.
So why would our government say yes to this?
That is a question that has kept me up for the past month or so.
Do you think they? I mean, if they've got a whole department of arts and culture, and they say they support whatever they say about supporting musicians, I mean, the least they can do, because they don't really do much supporting musicians that we see. Maybe they do, but we don't see it. The least they can do is not accept this bill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the issue is the DAC is a stakeholder in the bill, but they don't draft the bill. The bill is drafted by the Department of Trade and Industry. So it sits within the ambit of the DTI to draft, and we've made representation throughout the process. So initially, the bill was born out of a CRC report, which was basically driven by the music industry. The music industry went and lobbied the president and said, we need an updated law that takes cognizance of the fact that we're now moving into a digital age, and we want more protection as composers from every particular exploiter of music. So that was the basic premise of why we needed to change. And there's quite a lot of good things with the bill, don't get me wrong. That's the first part.
So it was like going to your father for protection and instead he molested you.
No, well...
I'm just saying, I'm trying to find an analogy.
He doesn't protect. He doesn't go as far as you need.
Protect. Okay.
Yeah.
He molests you, but still feeds you.
It's a very terrible example.
Never mind the example. The message comes across. So, how can people support this or back this up to avoid it not happening? Besides me giving bad examples.
So, also we want people to, basically look at this bill and interrogate it, grapple with the content of the bill, and share the message as widely as possible. Because as creatives, it's very difficult to organize creatives, because half the time people want to create. That's all they want to do. And this basically detracts from them creating content that we will then consume at a later stage. But right now, it's a call to really unite as creatives, understand the bill, even if you don't necessarily agree with some of the comments I might have as Wiseman after having read the bill. At the very least, make comments, because without a unified creative industry, we're going to end up with a very, very user-centric bill, or a user-centric law, which basically usurps current rights and leaves you at the mercy of super users who make use of creative content for very little compensation.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yo, Wiseman is out here. This must be the wisest conversation we've had.
I doubt it.
I'm
I've seen
trying to bring this guy down, to break it down, but he's using big words, super
okay.
uses. But we got it. The petition is down there. Basically, let me break it down. They screwing us, okay? They screwing us. It's like literally like everything you build your home. Let me give you that. You know what it is. You know, y'all want your land back. You see when they take over your land, this is colonizing your creativity as a musician. Is nothing bigger than that. Your creativity is who you are, what you are, and this is literally like a colonization. And who's the colonizers? The colonizers are the same. Well, the bill is gonna give power to the people that you always say that have got power over us. It's all these companies from the world, all these white-owned things, all those things. That's what the bill is gonna do in our time, right? In our time of black leadership. So my thing is that every artist or every creative, whatever race, creed, religion you are, they screwing us. Sign the petition. Let's make the change. And I'm sure they don't mean to do it, but Wiseman is gonna go there and just address it and show that it's a real problem. But the only reason I'm saying they're screwing is because I want you to sign that petition. Because Wiseman needs your backing to make it happen, and every other artist basically out there. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very nice summary.
Yeah. Thanks for coming through, Wiseman. Super wise guy. You're super users. We just make it super dumb from CAPASSO. Thank you for coming through, my brother. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Sure. Right.
Broadcast live